At Thanksgiving, I asked why my 5-year-old daughter's surgery got cancelled. My parents smiled. We spent her surgery money on your brother's party. She'll live. I just stared. Funny. The hospital sent me the recording of who called to cancel. Their faces went corpse white. The November wind carried the scent of wood smoke and dying leaves through Maple Ridge, Ohio. Jerry Crowell felt the cold bite through his jacket as he walked up the driveway of his childhood home, a covered casserole dish balanced in one hand while his other held tight to his daughter's small fingers. Lainey moved slowly beside him, her steps careful and deliberate. At 5 years old, she learned to compensate for the balance issues that plagued her daily. The inner ear condition had stolen her equilibrium, turned simple playgrounds into obstacle courses, made her classmates stare when she stumbled during circle time. We're almost there, sweetheart, Jerry said, keeping his voice light despite the exhaustion pressing down on his shoulders. Will Grandma have a good rolls? Lainey asked, tilting her head up at him. The movement made her wobble slightly, and Jerry steadied her without thinking. I'm sure she will. The truth was Jerry didn't care about the rolls or the turkey or any of it. He'd been pulling double shifts of the warehouse for 6 months straight. His back aching, his hands calloused, counting every dollar that went into the surgery fund. Next Tuesday, 7 days from now, the specialist would finally correct the damage in Lainey's inner ear, give her back the childhood she deserved. He checked the account that morning. Every penny was there, right where it should be. Jerry pushed open the front door and warmth rushed out to meet them along with the familiar chaos of Thanksgiving. His mother's voice carried from the kitchen, sharp and cheerful. His father's laugh bowed from somewhere deeper in the house. The television blared a football game nobody was watching. Jerry, his mother, Connie, appeared in the kitchen doorway, wiping her hands on a towel. She was 58 with carefully dyed brown hair and the kind of smile that had always seemed to stop just short of her eyes. You made it. And there's my girl. Lainey waved shyly, pressing closer to Jerry's leg. Go ahead and set that on the counter, Connie said, already turning back to the kitchen. Dinner's almost ready. Your brother's in the living room. Of course he was. Tyson was always wherever the attention gathered thickest. Jerry guided Lainey toward the couch where his younger brother sprawled like a king, surveying his domain. Tyson was 32, but somehow looked both younger and older. Boyish charm mixed with aware of someone who'd never been told no. He was holding court with a couple of cousins, gesturing wildly. So, the venue alone cost $15,000, Tyson was saying, his voice full of swagger. But when you're putting on an event this big, you can't cheap out. My sponsors expect quality. Jerry felt something twist in his chest. He guided Lainey to a chair in the corner. Far from the chaos. Uncle Tyson, one of the cousins said, that's insane. How do you even afford it? Tyson's grin widened. Family came through. Sometimes you got to ask for help when opportunity knocks. Jerry's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, expecting a work message. Instead, he saw a notification from the hospital billing department. His fingers felt cold as he opened it. Your appointment scheduled for November 28th has been canceled at the request of the patient's guardian. Please contact our office to reschedule. Jerry read it twice, then a third time. Guardian. He was Lainey's only guardian. Her mother had disappeared before her second birthday. Left nothing but a note in an empty closet. Jerry had raised Lainey alone, worked himself half to death to give her everything she needed. He walked into the hallway away from the noise and called the hospital. Yes, Mr. Crowell, the receptionist said, her voice apologetic. We received a call this morning from a family member stating you'd change your mind about the procedure. I didn't call you. The caller identified herself as the patient's grandmother and said she had your authorization. Jerry's vision narrowed. Did you record the call? We have a voicemail. Yes, sir. Would you like us to send it to your email? Do it now. He hung up and stood there in the hallway staring at family photos on the wall. Him and Tyson, his kids, his parents looking young and proud. Images of a family that maybe never existed the way he'd wanted to believe. His phone chimed. He opened a voicemail file and pressed play. His mother's voice filled his ear, smooth and confident. Yes. Hello. This is Connie Crook calling about my granddaughter Lainey's surgery scheduled for next Tuesday. We need to cancel the procedure. The child's father approved this cancellation. He's had a change of heart about the timing. We can reschedule later. Thank you. Jerry played it again, then once more. Each time, the knife twisted deeper. Jerry, his father, Rye, stood at the end of the hallway. 61, still built like the linebacker he'd been in high school, with silver hair and a voice used to being obeyed. Food's getting cold. Jerry slipped his phone into his pocket and followed his father to the dining room. The table had been set with Connie's good china, the kind that only came out for holidays. Turkey, stuffing, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce, all of it arranged like a magazine spread. His parents sat at the heads of the table. Tyson lounged to the right, already reaching for the rolls. Jerry took a seat with Lainey beside him, her feet dangling well above the floor. They passed dishes, made small talk. His father complained about property taxes. His mother fussed over whether the turkey was too dry. Tyson described his upcoming event in excruciating detail, some kind of networking celebration he was hosting for his business contacts. Jerry cut Lainey's turkey into small pieces and watched his family pretend everything was normal. "So, Jerry," Ray said, reaching for more mashed potatoes. "How's the warehouse treating you?" "Fine. Still pulling those extra shifts when I need to." Connie set down her fork with a delicate clink. "You were too hard, honey. You should take some time for yourself." Jerry met her eyes across the table. She held his gaze for exactly 2 seconds before looking away. He waited until everyone had moved on to dessert. Apple pie, pumpkin pie, whipped cream pile high. Tyson was telling another story, something about networking with potential investors. The cousins laughed on cue. Jerry set down his fork. "Did any of you call the hospital?" His voice cut through the chatter like a blade. The table went quiet. Ray looked up from his pie. "What?" "Lainey's surgery. Did any of you call the hospital about it?" Connie's face did something complicated. A flicker of surprise, then calculation, then resignation. She glanced at Rai. Some kind of silent communication passed between them that Jerry had seen 1,000 times growing up. The kind of look that meant they'd already discussed this, already decided how to handle it. Rai cleared his throat. "We meant to talk to you about that. Talk to me about canceling my daughter's surgery." "Now hold on," Rai said, his voice taking on that familiar authoritative tone. "Nobody canceled anything permanently. We just pushed it back." "What?" Connie sighed, setting down her napkin with exaggerated care. "Jerry, we know you've been saving and we know how important this is. But Tyson had an opportunity that couldn't wait. A real chance to grow his business. Sometimes family has to help family." The words hung in the air like smoke. "You used her surgery money." Jerry said it wasn't a question. "It's not like she's dying." Ray said, his patience clearly thinning. "The doctor said the condition isn't life-threatening. It can wait a few more months." But Tyson's event that was time-sensitive. He couldn't let his sponsors down. Jerry turned slowly to look at his brother. Tyson had stopped eating. He wore an expression Jerry had seen countless times before. That mixture of defiance and entitlement, like the world owed him something just for existing. "You took money from a 5-year-old's medical fund," Jerry said quietly. "Dad and Mom, help me out," Tyson replied, lifting his chin. "It's an investment in my future. When my business takes off, I'll pay everyone back." "You stole from your niece." "That's not fair," Connie interjected. "We borrowed from the family fund. Your father and I contributed to that account, too. Remember? We put in $2,000 last year for Lainey's birthday." Jerry felt something cold settle in his chest, a clarity he'd never experienced before. He pulled out his phone, sat on the table, and tapped the voicemail file. His mother's voice filled the dining room. "Yes. Hello. This is Connie Crowell calling about my granddaughter Lainey's surgery scheduled for next Tuesday. We need to cancel the procedure. The child's father approved this cancellation. He's had a change of heart about the timing. We can reschedule later. Thank you." The silence that followed was absolute. Connie's face had gone pale. Ray's jaw tightened, a muscle jumping beneath the skin. Tyson's smirk had vanished. Jerry let the silence stretch. "You lied," he said. Finally, his voice steady. "You called the hospital, impersonated me, and canceled my daughter's surgery. Then you took the money I'd been saving and gave it to him." He pointed at Tyson without looking away from his parents. "Jerry," Connie started. "How much?" "It's not. How much did you give him?" Raised hands curled into fists on the table. "Watch your tone." $12,000. Jerry said. "That's how much was in that account. Money I earned. Money I saved from my daughter's medical procedure. And you stole it." "We didn't steal anything," Rai said, his voice rising. "Like your mother said, we contributed to that fund. We have a right. You contributed $2,000 once and I put in $10,000 over 6 months of overtime, night shifts, weekend work." Jerry stood up, lifting Lainey from her chair. She clung to him, confused and frightened by the tension. "You don't have any rights to her money. You don't have any rights to her medical decisions. And you sure as hell don't have the right to lie and say, I approved any of this." "Sit down," Rai commanded. "We're not finished talking." "Yes, we are." Jerry walked toward the door, Laney in his arms. "You're overreacting." Connie called after him, her voice cracking. "Jerry, please. We can work this out. Tyson will pay you back. Just give us some time." Jerry stopped at the threshold and looked back. His father sat rigid with anger. His mother had tears in her eyes, the performative kind she'd always been able to summon on demand. Tyson stared at his plate, suddenly very interested in his remaining pie. "You ruined yourselves," Jerry said quietly. "Remember that?" He carried Laney out into the cold November night, and didn't look back. The drive home took 15 minutes. Jerry kept his breathing steady, his hands loose on the wheel. Laney sat in her booster seat, watching him with those wide, worried eyes. "Daddy." "Yeah, baby. Are you mad at Grandma and Grandpa?" Jerry merged onto the main road, street lights casting moving shadows through the car. "I'm disappointed in them." "Did I do something wrong?" The question hit him like a fist. He pulled into their driveway, a small ranch house with peeling paint and a yard that needed work. Home. The place he made for them after her mother left. Not much, but theirs. He unbuckled Laney and carried her inside, straight to her bedroom with its pink walls and toy dinosaurs scattered across the floor. He set her on the bed and knelt beside her so they were eye level. "Listen to me," he said, taking her small hands in his. "You didn't do anything wrong. You understand nothing. This is about choices grown-ups made. Bad choices. But the surgery, we're still doing the surgery. I promise you. Next Tuesday, just like we planned." "But Grandma said," Grandma was wrong. The words felt good to say out loud. "Solid, true, and I'm going to fix this. But you need to know something, okay? You did nothing wrong. Don't ever think that." Laney nodded, though her eyes still held uncertainty. Jerry got her ready for bed, helped her brush her teeth, read her 2 chapters of the dinosaur book she loved. By the time she fell asleep, it was nearly 9 o'clock. He walked back to the living room and sat on the couch in the darkness. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic. Jerry closed his eyes and let himself remember. He'd been 7 when he first understood how his family worked. Tyson had been 4, still young enough to be adorable, to get away with anything. Jerry had saved his allowance for months to buy a remote control car, $35, a fortune to a second grader. He'd kept it on the top shelf of his closet, treasured it, only took it out for special occasions. One afternoon, he'd come home from school to find Tyson playing with it in the backyard. The car was cracked, one missing, the remote covered in mud. "Tyson broke my car," Jerry had told his parents. Rye had barely looked up from the television. "He's just a kid. Share your things." "But he broke it." "Then you should have taken better care of it," Connie had said. "Maybe next time. Don't leave expensive toys where your little brother can find them." That had been the pattern year after year. Tyson getting caught cheating on a test. "Jerry, you should have helped him study." Tyson wrecking Ray's truck. Jerry should have offered to drive him to the party. Tyson losing job after job. Jerry should have helped him network better. Jerry had learned to be invisible, to work hard, to expect nothing. When Laney was born, he'd hoped things would change. His parents had seemed excited about being grandparents. They bought gifts, visited the hospital, smiled for photos, but within months, the old patterns emerged. They'd show up unannounced when it was convenient for them. Forget Laney's birthday, but remember to ask Jerry for money. Make promises they never kept. Jerry had kept hoping anyway. Kept believing that maybe someday they'd see him. Really see him. Tonight had shattered that illusion forever. He opened his eyes and reached for his phone. First, he called the hospital. A different receptionist answered, "Night shift." "I need to reschedule my daughter's surgery," Jerry said. "The one that was canceled this morning." "Let me look that up." Laney Crowell. "Yes." Keys clicked in the background. "I see the cancellation. We can put you back on the schedule for Tuesday the 28th, same time as before." "Good. And I need you to put a note on our file." "What kind of note?" "Only I can authorize any changes to her treatment or appointments. Nobody else, not my parents, not any other family members. Just me. I want a security flag on the account." A pause. "Is there a safety concern?" "There's a fraud concern. Someone impersonated me to cancel the surgery." "Oh," another pause. "I can absolutely add that note. And sir, if you'd like to file a formal report, not yet, but keep that voicemail. I might need it. We keep all communications for 6 months. It'll be in the system." Jerry thanked her and hung up. Then he opened his banking app. The surgery account showed a balance of $347.82. $12,000 had been withdrawn 2 days ago. He took a screenshot. Next, He went through his text messages. Found one from Tyson from last week. Mom and Dad are helping me out with the event budget. Going to be epic. Another screenshot. He opened his email and found the hospital bill estimates, the payment plan he'd set up, the confirmation of his deposits over the last 6 months. More screenshots. By midnight, Jerry had documented everything, every text, every email, every transaction. The voicemail had been downloaded and backed up to 3 separate locations. He created a folder on his computer and labeled it evidence. Then he sat back and stared at it. He wasn't building a fight. He was building a case. His phone buzzed. A text from Connie. Jerry, please call me. We need to talk about this like adults. He deleted it. Another text came through immediately. You're being cruel. We're family. He deleted that, too. A third message. Tyson feels terrible. He wants to apologize. Jerry turned off his phone and went to bed. Sleep came surprisingly easily. For the first time in years, Jerry felt no guilt, no uncertainty, just cold, clear purpose. The next morning, Jerry drove Lainey to school and went straight to work. The warehouse was massive, filled with rows of shelving that stretched toward the ceiling. Forklifts beeped, radios crackled. The morning shift supervisor, Phil, waved him over. You look like hell, Phil said. Family Thanksgiving. Say no more. Phil handed him a clipboard. Got a big order shipping today. You got to handle the loading dock. Yeah. Jerry spent the day in motion, loading pallets, checking inventory, moving boxes. The physical labor felt good. Simple. Nobody at the warehouse cared about drama or family politics. You did your job or you didn't. Everything else was noise. During his lunch break, he sat in his car and turned his phone back on. 23 missed calls, 17 text messages. His mother, please, Jerry, let's meet and talk. His father, you need to calm down and stop being dramatic. Tyson, bro, seriously, you're going to ruin my whole event over this. Jerry deleted them all except one. His father's message from that morning. We need to clear the air. Meet us at the community center tomorrow at 2. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Jerry stared at the message for a long time. Then he replied, I'll be there. The Maple Ridge Community Center sat at the edge of town, a squat brick building used for everything from bingo nights to local government meetings. Jerry arrived at 155 and parked near the entrance. The November afternoon was gray and cold. Dead leaves skittered across the parking lot, caught in swirling eddies of wind. Jerry walked inside. The lobby smelled like old coffee and industrial cleaner. A teenager working the front desk barely looked up from her phone. Conference room B, she said, pointing down a hallway. Jerry's footsteps echoed on the linoleum. He found a room at the end of the corridor, a small space with a folding table, plastic chairs, and a white board covered in faded marker stains. His parents were already there. Ray stood by the window, arms crossed. Connie sat at the table, hands folded in front of her. Tyson leaned against the wall, trying to look casual and failing. Jerry walked in and closed the door behind him. Ray turned to face him. You're late. I'm not. Jerry checked his watch. It's 1:59. Don't start with that attitude. Why am I here? Ray's jaw tightened. Because we're family, and family solves problems together. Not by running away on Thanksgiving. Not by ignoring phone calls. I didn't run away. I left after discovering you committed fraud. That's a serious accusation, Ray said, his voice dropping into a dangerous register. Jerry pulled out a chair and sat down. He set his phone on the table, screen up, and looked at his father steadily. It's not an accusation. It's a fact. Connie leaned forward, her expression pained. Jerry, honey, you have to understand. We were trying to help Tyson. You know how hard he's worked to build his network to create opportunities for himself when he came to us with this event. How much did he ask for? That's not how much. She glanced at Ray then back at Jerry. 15,000. And you had 3,000 in savings, Jerry said. So you took 12 from Lainey's surgery fund. We borrowed it. Ray corrected with full intention to pay it back. No. Jerry's voice remained level. You stole it. And you lied to the hospital to cover it up. You impersonated me. That's identity fraud. Tyson pushed off the wall. Jesus Christ. Jerry, you're really going to sit here and act like we committed some kind of crime? We're family. Families borrow money from each other all the time. Jerry looked at his brother. Really looked at him. 32 years old and still dressed like a college student trying too hard. Expensive sneakers he couldn't afford. Designer sunglasses hooked on his collar. A watch that probably cost more than Jerry made in a month. You didn't borrow anything. Jerry said, "You never asked me. You never got my permission. You conspired with our parents to steal money from a medical fundment for a child's surgery." "My child, your niece, it's not that serious," Tyson said, "the surgery can wait." "No, it can't." The doctor said, "Do you know what it's like?" Jerry cut him off, his voice still calm, but harder now. "Watching your daughter fall down on the playground because her balance is broken. Seeing her sit out during games because she's scared of getting hurt. Having her ask why she's different from the other kids." Tyson shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I get it. You don't get anything. You've never had to sacrifice for anyone but yourself your entire life." "That's not fair," Connie said quickly. "Tyson has worked very hard." "At what?" Jerry asked, turning to his mother. "What exactly has he worked hard at?" "He's had 6 jobs in 3 years. He started 4 different businesses that went nowhere. And every single time you bail him out." Rai slammed his hand on the table, making the surface rattle. "That's enough. You don't talk about your brother that way." "Why not?" "Because it's true. Because he's family." Jerry stood up slowly. "You keep saying that word family like it means something. Like it gives you permission to do whatever you want." He picked up his phone and opened the voicemail file. "Listen to this again," he said, and played the recording. Connie's voice filled the room, smooth and confident, as she lied to the hospital, lied about Jerry's authorization, lied to steal his daughter's chance at normal childhood. When finished, Jerry set the phone back down. "That's you," he said to his mother. "You called the hospital. You pretended to be authorized. You canceled a medical procedure for a minor child. Do you understand what that is?" Connie's hands trembled slightly. "I was trying to help. You were committing medical fraud." "Don't you dare threaten your mother," Rai said, moving toward Jerry. Jerry didn't flinch. "I'm not threatening anyone. I'm explaining what you did." "We're not giving the money back," Rai said flatly. "Tyson's event is in 3 days. The money's already spent. Deposits are non-refundable." "Then you have a problem." "No, you have a problem." Ray shot back. "You think you can come in here and throw around legal terms like they mean something? We're your parents. We raised you, fed you, gave you a home." Jerry felt something cold and final settle in his chest. "You gave Tyson a home," he said quietly. "I just live there." The words hung in the air. Connie's face crumpled. "That's not true. We love you both." "No, you don't." Jerry picked up his phone. "You love Tyson. You protect Tyson. You sacrifice everything for Tyson. I was just the reliable one. The one who didn't need help. The one you could forget about because I'd be fine on my own. This is ridiculous." Tyson muttered. Jerry turned to him. "Did you even ask where the money came from? Did you care?" "Dad said it was from their savings." "You knew. You've always known. You just didn't care because you never have to face consequences." "That's not name one time." Jerry said, "One time you faced real consequences for your actions without Mom and Dad bailing you out." Tyson opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. Jerry looked at his parents. "Here's how this works. You return every dollar to the surgery fund by Monday morning. All 12,000. I don't care how you get it. Loans, credit cards, sell something. I don't care, but you get it back." "Or what?" Rai asked, his voice dripping with challenge. Jerry met his father's eyes. "Or I filed charges. Identity fraud, medical interference. Theft, elder abuse statutes don't apply here, but child protection laws do. And I have everything documented, the voicemail, the bank transfers, text messages from Tyson bragging about his budget. A statement from the hospital confirming who called." "You wouldn't ruin your own parents," Connie whispered. "You ruined yourselves." Jerry walked toward the door. "Monday morning, every dollar or I go to the police." "Jerry, wait." He stopped with his hand on the doorknob. "You stole from a 5-year-old. You canceled her surgery. You lied and committed fraud. And you did it all so Tyson could throw a party." He pulled open the door. "Monday morning," he repeated. Then he left while his mother sobbed and his father shouted and his brother stood there finally silent. Jerry walked out of the community center into the gray afternoon and didn't look back. His hands weren't shaking. His heart wasn't racing. He felt nothing but clarity. Monday came and went with no money returned. Jerry checked the surgery account repeatedly throughout the day. The balance remained at $34,782. Tuesday morning, he called his father. "Give it time," Ray said, his voice tight. "These things take. You had 4 days. I gave you a deadline. You can't just." Jerry hung up. He drove to the Maple Ridge Police Department during his lunch break. The building was small, tucked behind a municipal parking lot. Inside, the waiting area had scuffed floors and motivational posters about community safety. "Can I help you?" The officer at the front desk looked young, maybe 25, with a name tag that read Jefferson. "I need to file a complaint," Jerry said. "What kind of complaint?" "Identity fraud. Medical interference. Theft officer." Jefferson straightened. "Who's the complainant?" "Me and my daughter." "She's 5. The officer's expression shifted. "Let me get a detective." Jerry waited in a small interview room. Gray walls, metal table, 2 chairs, a camera in the corner with a red light glowing. The detective who entered was a woman in her 40s with short hair and tired eyes. Her badge read, Detective Morrison. "Mr. Crowell." She sat down across from him. Officer Jefferson said, "You're reporting fraud." Jerry set his phone on the table. "My parents and brother stole $12,000 from my daughter's medical fund. My mother called the hospital, impersonated me, and canceled a scheduled surgery to cover up the theft." Detective Morrison pulled out a notepad. "Walk me through it." Jerry did. Start to finish. Thanksgiving dinner, the voicemail, the confrontation, everything. When he finished, Morrison was quiet for a long moment. "Do you have documentation?" Jerry opened his phone and showed her the voicemail, the bank statements, the text messages, the hospital's confirmation email. Morrison listened to the voicemail 3 times. "This is your mother's voice." "Yes." "And she identified herself as having your authorization." "Yes." Morrison made several notes. "And the surgery, what's your daughter's condition?" "Inner ear damage affecting her balance and development." "The surgery was scheduled for tomorrow." "Was I rescheduled it, but they took the money I'd saved?" Morrison nodded slowly. "Mr. Crowell, I want to be straight with you. These kinds of cases, family disputes over money, they're complicated, sometimes hard to prosecute." Jerry felt something sharp move through his chest. "So, you're not taking this seriously?" "I didn't say that." Morrison met his eyes. "What I'm saying is that your evidence is stronger than most family fraud cases I see. The voicemail is damning. The bank records are clear. The medical interference adds weight. If you want to pursue this, we can investigate." "I want to pursue it. Even though it's your parents, especially because it's my parents." Morrison studied him for a moment. "Kids usually hesitate to press charges against family. I'm not hesitating. I can see that." She tapped her pen against her notepad. "Give me 48 hours. I'll need to verify the hospital records, pull the full bank statements, interview some witnesses, but based on what you've shown me, this case has merit." Jerry stood. "Thank you, Mr. Crowell." Morrison stood as well. "One more thing, if you move forward with this, there's no going back. Once charges are filed, it's out of your hands. The state pursues the case. You understand?" "I understand." "And you're prepared for what that means for your family?" Jerry thought of Lainey asking if she'd done something wrong. Thought of her wobbling across playgrounds while other kids ran easily. Thought of his parents choosing Tyson's vanity over her health. They made their choice. He said, "I'm making mine." Morrison nodded. "I'll be in touch." That night, Jerry was putting Lainey to bed when someone knocked on his door. He looked through the peephole and saw his father standing on the porch. Jerry opened the door but didn't step back to let him in. "What do you want?" Ray looked older than he had on Monday. The lines around his eyes deeper, his shoulders less certain. "We need to talk." Ray said, "We talked. I gave you a deadline. You ignored it. You don't understand what you're doing." "I understand exactly what I'm doing." Ray's jaw tightened. "You went to the police. How do you know that?" "Officer Jefferson is married to your mother's cousin. Word travels in this town." "Jerry, you should have remembered that before you tried to destroy your family." Jerry leaned against the door frame. "I didn't destroy anything. You did that yourselves. We made a mistake. You committed a crime. It was a family matter. Stealing $12,000 and committing identity fraud isn't a family matter. It's a felony." Ray took a step forward. His voice dropped. "You pull this back right now. You call the police and tell them it was a misunderstanding." "No, Jerry, go home." "Dad, listen to me." Ray said, his voice shaking now. "Your mother is terrified. Tyson is panicking. Do you have any idea what this could do to us? To our reputations? To our lives?" Jerry felt nothing but cold clarity. "You should have thought of that before you stole from your granddaughter. She's fine. The surgery can wait. That's not your decision to make." Ray's hand shot out and grabbed Jerry's arm. His grip was tight, almost painful. "You ungrateful?" Jerry yanked his arm free. "Don't touch me after everything we did for you." "Like what?" Jerry asked, his voice dropping to something dangerous. What exactly did you do for me? You fed me because that's what parents have to do. You kept a roof over my head because not doing it was illegal. But you never chose me. Not once. Every time I needed something, you told me to figure it out. Every time Tyson screwed up, you fixed it for him. You don't get to pretend you were some kind of martyrs now. Ray's face had gone red. We gave you a home. You gave Tyson a home. I was just there. The words seemed to hit Ray like a physical blow. He stepped back, breathing hard. You're making a mistake, he said finally. The only mistake I made was thinking you might change. Thinking you might care about Lainey more than you cared about protecting Tyson. We do care about her. Then why did you steal her surgery money? Ray had no answer. Jerry stepped back and started to close the door. Don't come back here. If you want to talk, do it through lawyers. Jerry, he closed the door, locked it, stood there listening to his father's breathing on the other side. After a long moment, footsteps retreated down the porch steps. Jerry looked through the peephole and watched his father drive away. Then he went to check on Lainey. She was asleep. One arm wrapped around her stuffed brachiosaurus, her breathing soft and steady. Jerry sat on the edge of her bed and smoothed her hair back from her forehead. I'm not backing down, he whispered. I promise. Wednesday morning, Detective Morrison called. Mr. Crowell, I need you to come down to the station. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, but we've had a development. Jerry took the afternoon off work and drove to the police department. Morrison met him in the lobby and led him back to her office, a cluttered space with filing cabinets and a desk covered in case folders. Your father came in this morning, she said, gesturing for Jerry to sit. He filed a complaint claiming you threatened him and your family. Jerry felt his chest tighten. That's not true. I know. Morrison pulled out a recording device. He insisted I take a statement. I did. Then I asked him about the voicemail from a hospital. What did he say? He claimed it was a miscommunication that your mother called to ask about postponement options, not to cancel. When I played him the actual recording, his story fell apart pretty quickly. Morrison clicked the device and Ray's voice filled the room, angry and defensive, talking over Morrison's questions, refusing to explain why his wife had lied about Jerry's authorization. He eventually admitted they took the money, Morrison said. Claimed it was a family loan that you'd agreed to. When I showed him your bank statements proving you were the only contributor to that account, he stopped talking. Jerry let out a breath. So, what happens now? I've completed my investigation. The evidence supports charges of identity fraud, medical interference, and theft. The district attorney is reviewing the case. If they agree to prosecute, and based on what I've seen, formal charges will be filed within the next 72 hours. All three of them. Your mother for making the fraudulent call, your father as an accessory. He admitted to helping facilitate the withdrawal, and your brother for receiving stolen funds knowing they came from your daughter's medical account. Jerry nodded slowly. Mr. Crowell, Morrison said gently. Are you sure about this? Why does everyone keep asking me that? Because it's a big step. Prison time is a real possibility here. Good. Morrison studied him. You don't have any doubts? They stole from my daughter. They lied. They would have let her suffer because Tyson wanted to throw a party. No, I don't have doubts. Morrison nodded. Then we moved forward. I'll need you to give a formal statement, and you should prepare for this to get messy. Your family will likely hire lawyers. There might be media attention depending on how the defense handles it. I don't care. You might care when it's happening. I won't. Morrison smiled slightly. It wasn't a happy expression. I've been doing this job for 20 years. I've seen a lot of families destroy themselves over money, over property, over stupid grudges, but I've rarely seen someone as certain as you are right now. They hurt my daughter. That's not complicated. No. Morrison agreed. I suppose it isn't. The charges were filed on Friday. Jerry got the call from Morrison at 4 in the afternoon. It's official. Your mother is charged with identity fraud and interference with medical treatment. Your father with accessory to fraud and theft. Your brother with receiving stolen property and financial misconduct. What's the timeline? Arraignment is Monday. They'll be formally notified this evening. I wanted you to hear it from me first. Jerry thanked her and hung up. He sat in his car in the warehouse parking lot, watching the sun sink behind the industrial buildings. Workers streamed out, heading home to their families, their normal lives. Jerry's phone started ringing. First his mother, then his father, then Tyson, then his mother again. He didn't answer. Instead, he drove home, picked up Lainey from after-school care, and took her out for pizza. They sat in a booth at the back of the restaurant, and Lainey told him about her day, about the art project she'd made, about the book her teacher had read, About the game she'd played at recess, even though running was hard. "Dad," she said, dragging a piece of pepperoni through marinara sauce. "Why haven't we seen Grandma and Grandpa?" Jerry had been dreading this question. "We're taking a break from them for a while." "Are you still mad?" "I'm not mad, baby. I'm just making sure we're safe." Lainey nodded, accepting this with the easy trust of childhood. "Okay." That night, after Lainey was asleep, Jerry sat on his porch despite the cold. The street was quiet. Lights glowed in neighbors' windows. Someone's television flickered blue through curtains. His phone buzzed. A text from a number he didn't recognize. "This is Connie's lawyer. We need to discuss your willingness to drop charges." Jerry deleted it. Another text came through. "Your actions are destroying your family. Think about what you're doing." He deleted that, too. A third message. "We can make this go away if you're reasonable." Jerry turned off his phone. He'd stopped being reasonable the moment his mother lied to a hospital about his daughter's surgery. There was no going back now, and he was fine with that. The courthouse was an old building in the center of Maple Ridge, built from gray stone that had weathered a 100 red years of Ohio seasons. Jerry arrived early Monday morning wearing the only suit he owned, slightly too tight in shoulders, slightly too short in the sleeves, but clean and pressed. Detective Morrison met him in the lobby. "The arraignment is at 9 o'clock. You don't have to be here for this part." "I want to be. It's just a formality." "They'll enter. Please set bail. Schedule the preliminary hearing." "I know. I still want to be here." Morrison nodded. Courtroom 3, second floor. Jerry climbed the wide staircase, his footsteps echoing. The hallway was lined with wooden benches where people waited, defendants, witnesses, family members. He recognized a few faces from around town. They looked away when they saw him. Word had spread fast. A son pressing charges against his parents. In a town like Maple Ridge, that was the kind of story that traveled faster than weather. Jerry found a seat near the back of courtroom 3. The space had high ceilings and tall windows that let in thin November light. The judge's bench dominated the front. Dark wood worn smooth by decades of justice. At 9 sharp, the bailiff called the room to order. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Patricia Brennan." Everyone stood. The judge entered. A woman in her 60s with silver hair and glasses perched on her nose. She took her seat and surveyed the courtroom with the expression of someone who'd seen everything and wasn't impressed by any of it. "First case," she said, "the State of Ohio versus Connie Marie Crail, Raymond James Crowell, and Tyson Ray Cra." A door opened and Jerry's family entered with their lawyers. Connie looked smaller than she had 2 weeks ago. Her face was puffy, eyes red. She wore a navy dress that hung loose on her frame. Ray walked stiffly beside her, his jaw set, refusing to look anywhere but straight ahead. Tyson brought up the rear, flanked by a lawyer in an expensive suit who looked like he handled bigger cases in bigger cities. The three of them stood before the judge. Brennan read the charges without inflection. "Connie Marie Crowell, you are charged with identity fraud and interference with medical treatment. How do you plead?" Connie's lawyer, a local attorney named Peters, stepped forward. "Not guilty, Your Honor." "Raymond James Crowell, you're charged with accessory to fraud, coercion, and theft. How do you plead?" "Not guilty," Ray's lawyer said. "Tyson Ray Crail, you are charged with receiving stolen funds and financial misconduct. How do you plead?" The expensive lawyer smiled confidently. "Not guilty, Your Honor." Judge Brennan made notes. Bail is set at $25,000 each. Preliminary hearing is set for December 15th. She looked up over her glasses. "I'm also issuing a protection order. The defendants are to have no contact with the victim or the victim's minor child." "Your Honor," Peters objected. "These are the child's grandparents who allegedly committed fraud to steal from her medical fund." Brennan cut him off. "The protection order stands. Any violation will result in immediate incarceration. Is that clear?" Connie's face crumpled. Ray's hands clenched into fists. Tyson looked at his lawyer, who shook his head slightly. "Yes, Your Honor," Peter said quietly. "Court is adjourned." The gavel came down with a crack that echoed through the courtroom. Jerry watched his family file out. Connie was crying openly now. Ray had his arm around her, guiding her toward the exit. Tyson walked behind them, texting furiously on his phone. None of them looked at Jerry. He waited until the courtroom had cleared before standing. Morrison was waiting in the hallway. "That went smoothly," she said. "What happens next?" "Preliminary hearing in 3 weeks. The prosecution will present evidence. The defense will try to get charges reduced or dismissed. Based on what we have, I'd be surprised if it doesn't go to trial." "How long until trial?" "Could be months, maybe longer. These things move slowly. Jerry nodded. I need to get to work. Mr. Crowell Morrison caught his arm gently. You did well in there. I didn't do anything. I just sat there. You showed up. That matters. A lot of people wouldn't have a spine to see this through. Jerry shrugged. They hurt my daughter. It's not complicated. He left Morrison in the hallway and walked out of the courthouse into the cold morning. The preliminary hearing 3 weeks later was longer and more intense. The prosecution called Detective Morrison to the stand. She walked the court through the investigation. The voicemail recording, the bank statements, the text messages. Everything was entered into evidence with careful precision. Then they played the recording. Jerry sat in the gallery and watched his mother's face as her own voice filled the courtroom. The lie sounded even worse in the sterile legal environment. Confident, deliberate, completely fraudulent, Connie kept her head down, hands twisted together in her lap. The defense tried to argue that it was a misunderstanding, that Connie had only been trying to help, that families communicate about medical decisions all the time. Judge Brennan cut them off. Counselor, the recording is clear. The defendant identified herself as having the father's authorization. She did not. That's not a miscommunication. That's fraud. Next came the bank records. The prosecution showed the pattern of Jerry's deposits over 6 months. Then the single large withdrawal that emptied the account. And who authorized that withdrawal? The prosecutor asked Morrison. Raymond Crowell. He has signature authority on the account because he contributed funds previously. Did he have the account holder's permission for that withdrawal? No. Mr. Cra, the victim, was unaware of the withdrawal until after it occurred. Ray's lawyer tried to argue that having signature authority meant Ray had legal right to withdraw funds. Judge Brennan looked skeptical, even if those funds were specifically earmarked for a minor child's medical procedure. Family accounts often have flexible usage. We're not talking about flexible usage, counselor. We're talking about taking money designated for a child's surgery and giving it to her uncle for a party. The court finds sufficient evidence to proceed to trial on all charges. The defense lawyers huddled with their clients. Tyson's expensive attorney whispered urgently. Connie was crying again. Ray sat rigid, staring at nothing. Trial is set for February 20th. Brennan announced all previous conditions remain in effect. Court is adjourned. Jerry tried to keep life normal through December and January. Laney's surgery had been rescheduled for early December. Jerry took her to the hospital on a cold Tuesday morning. The procedure took 4 hours. He sat in the waiting room drinking bad coffee and reading the same magazine 3 times without absorbing any of it. When a surgeon came out, she was smiling. Everything went perfectly. She should see significant improvement in her balance within a few weeks. Jerry's legs felt weak with relief. He saw Laney in recovery, groggy and confused, but okay. She smiled at him through the fog of anesthesia. Did it work? She slurred. It worked, baby. Good. I want to run. Jerry held her hand and felt something tight in his chest finally ease. The money had been recovered as part of the criminal case. The court had frozen Tyson's accounts and ordered restitution. Jerry got every penny back, plus damages. By Christmas, Laney was running. Actually running. Not carefully, not hesitantly, but with the wild abandon of a normal 5-year-old. She played tag at school. She jumped in puddles. She spun in circles until she was dizzy and laughing. Jerry watched her and knew he'd made the right choice. The trial began on February 20th. The courthouse was busier this time. Word had spread beyond Maple Ridge. A few reporters lingered in the hallway, notepads ready. Jerry wore the same suit, still too tight, still too short. The jury was selected over 2 days. 12 people from a surrounding county who would decide his parents' fate. They looked ordinary: a retired teacher, a grocery store manager, a mechanic, a nurse. Normal people asked to judge an abnormal situation. Opening statements came next. The prosecutor was a woman named Catherine Reed, mid-4s, with a calm authority that filled the courtroom. This case is about betrayal, she told the jury. The betrayal of a parent's trust, a child's welfare, and the basic decency we expect from family. The defendants didn't just steal money. They stole a little girl's chance at a normal childhood. They lied to medical professionals. They committed fraud. And they did it all so that one member of this family could throw a party. She paused, letting the words sink in. The evidence will show you exactly who made these choices and why. And it will show you that these weren't mistakes or misunderstandings. They were deliberate, calculated acts designed to benefit one person at a child's expense. That's not family. That's crime. The defense went next. Peters, representing Connie and Ray, tried a different approach. This is a family tragedy, a misunderstanding that spiraled out of control. Yes, Mistakes were made. Yes, there was miscommunication. But these are grandparents who love their granddaughter. They contributed to her medical fund. They were involved in her care. When their son Tyson came to them with a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, they made a choice, perhaps an unwise choice, to help him with the understanding that the money would be repaid quickly. Tyson's lawyer was more aggressive. My client is a victim of his parents' decisions. He asked for help with a legitimate business expense. He was told the funds were available. He had no knowledge of where that money came from or how it was obtained. Holding him responsible for his parents' actions is unjust. Judge Brennan called a recess. Jerry sat in the hallway and drank water from fountain that tasted like metal. Morrison found him. "You okay? They're making me sound unreasonable. That's their job. Don't let it get to you." "I'm not." And surprisingly, he wasn't. The anger that had driven him for months had cooled into something harder, more permanent. Not rage, just certainty. The prosecution built their case methodically. They called the hospital administrator who confirmed the cancellation call and verified it came from Connie. They called the bank officer who confirmed Ray had withdrawn the money without Jerry's knowledge. They called Jerry's supervisor from the warehouse who testified about the overtime hours Jerry had worked, the extra shifts, the dedication to saving for his daughter's surgery. They played the voicemail recording multiple times. Each time, jury members glanced at Connie. She kept her head down, tears streaming silently. Then the prosecution called Jerry to the stand. He walked to the witness box, feeling strangely calm. Raised his right hand, swore to tell the truth. Reed approached with a gentle expression. "Mr. Crowell, tell the jury about your daughter, Lainey." Jerry took a breath. "She's 6 now. She loves dinosaurs. She's learning to read. She's the bravest person I know." "What was her medical condition?" "Inner ear damage. It affected her balance. She fell a lot. Couldn't run or play like other kids. She was self-conscious about it. And the surgery was meant to correct this." "Yes." "How long had you been saving for it?" 6 months. I worked overtime. Took every extra shift I could get." "How much did you save?" $12,000. Reed let that number hang in the air. "When did you learn the surgery had been canceled?" Jerry described Thanksgiving. The dinner, the tension, the message from the hospital, his parents' casual admission. "What did you feel when you heard the voicemail recording?" Peters objected. "Relevance. I'm establishing state of mind." "Your Honor, I'll allow it." Jerry looked at the jury. "I felt like I'd been stupid for believing they might change. For thinking they cared about Lainey more than they cared about protecting my brother." "Did you confront them?" "Yes." "What did they say?" "That the surgery could wait. That Tyson's opportunity was more important. That family helps family." "Did they offer to return the money?" "No. My father said they weren't giving me anything." Reed nodded. "Thank you, Mr. Crale." Peters cross-examined next, trying to make Jerry seem vengeful, unreasonable, vindictive. He asked about childhood grudges, about whether Jerry had ever borrowed money from his parents, about whether this was really about the surgery or about old resentments. Jerry answered calmly, "This is about my daughter, nothing else." "But you refuse any reconciliation with your parents." "They stole from my daughter and lied about it. There's nothing to reconcile." "You don't think that's harsh?" "I think stealing from a child is harsh." Peters had no response to that. The defense presented their case over 3 days. They called character witnesses who testified that Ray and Connie were pillars of the community, that Tyson was a hard worker with big dreams, that this was all a terrible misunderstanding blown out of proportion. They tried to paint Jerry as estranged, difficult, holding unreasonable grudges. But they couldn't get around the voicemail. Connie took the stand in her own defense. She cried through her testimony, explaining that she'd only been trying to help both her sons, that she never meant any harm. That she loved Lainey and would never intentionally hurt her. "I made a mistake," she sobbed. "A terrible mistake. But I'm not a criminal. I'm a grandmother who tried to help and made the wrong choice." Reed's cross-examination was surgical. "Mrs. Crowell, when you called the hospital, did you identify yourself truthfully?" "I told them I was Lainey's grandmother." "Did you tell them you didn't have the authority to cancel the surgery?" "I thought yes or no, Mrs. Crowell." "Did you tell them you were not authorized to make medical decisions for the child?" "No." "Did you tell them the child's father approved the cancellation?" A long pause. "Yes." "Was that true?" "No." "So, you lied." "I thought you lied to medical professionals about having authorization you didn't have. In order to cancel a surgery you had no right to cancel. Is that correct?" Connie's face crumpled. "Yes." Ray testified next, trying to explain the financial decisions, the family dynamics, the complexities that led to their choices. Reed demolished him too, walking him through each decision, each lie, each deliberate act that built toward the fraud. Tyson didn't testify. His lawyer was smart enough to keep him off the stand. Closing arguments came on a Friday afternoon. Reed spoke to the jury with quiet intensity. The defense wants you to believe this was a misunderstanding, that these are loving grandparents who made a mistake. But the evidence tells a different story. It tells the story of deliberate fraud, of a lie told with confidence to a hospital, of money stolen from a child's medical fund, of a family who valued one member's vanity over a little girl's health. She walked along the jury box making eye contact with each member. When you deliberate, remember the voicemail. Remember Connie Crowell's voice saying she had authorization she didn't have. Remember that a 6-year-old child lost her chance at a normal childhood because her grandparents wanted to fund her uncle's party. That's not a mistake. That's a crime. And the law requires you to hold them accountable. Peters made his closing next, pleading for leniency, for understanding, for compassion. But Jerry could see it in the jury's faces. They'd already decided. The verdict came back Monday morning. Jerry sat in the gallery beside Detective Morrison, his hands steady on his knees. The jury filed in. None of them looked at the defendants. That was always a bad sign for the defense. Has the jury reached a verdict? Judge Brennan asked. We have, Your Honor. In the case of the State of Ohio versus Connie Marie Crale on the charge of identity fraud. How do you find guilty? Connie collapsed in tears on the charge of interference with medical treatment. Guilty. In the case of the State of Ohio versus Raymond James Crowell on the charge of accessory to fraud. Guilty. Ray's jaw clenched on the charge of theft. Guilty. In the case of the State of Ohio versus Tyson Ray Crowell on the charge of receiving stolen property. Guilty. Tyson's face went pale. On the charge of financial misconduct. Guilty. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Judge Brennan's gavel cracked once. Order. Sentencing will be held in 2 weeks. The defendants will remain free on bail until that time. Court is adjourned. Jerry sat still while the room cleared around him. He'd won. He didn't feel triumphant. Didn't feel vindicated. Just done, Jerry. Morrison touched his shoulder. You okay? Yeah, that was the right verdict. I know. She studied him for a moment. What happens now? I wait for sentencing. Then I go home to my daughter. Morrison nodded. She's lucky to have you. Jerry stood and straightened his jacket. I'm lucky to have her. Sentencing came 2 weeks later on a gray March morning. The courtroom was packed. More reporters now, more spectators drawn by the unusual case of son who'd sent his parents to prison. Judge Brennan called the court to order and reviewed the verdicts. This was a difficult case, she said, not because the law is unclear. It's very clear that what you did was criminal, but because it involved family, and family cases always carry additional weight. She looked at Connie. Mrs. Crowell, you committed identity fraud against your own son to harm your own granddaughter's medical care. You lied with confidence and without remorse to medical professionals. Your actions were deliberate and calculated. Connie sobbed quietly. Mr. Raymond Crowell, you facilitated this fraud. You stole money from a child's medical fund, knowing exactly what that money was for. You showed no remorse and attempted to intimidate your son when he sought justice. Ray stared straight ahead. His jaw locked. Mr. Tyson Crowell, while you may not have been the architect of this fraud, you were a willing beneficiary. You accepted stolen money knowing or having strong reason to believe it came from inappropriate sources. You showed no concern for your niece's welfare. Tyson's expensive lawyer had tried everything to get him a suspended sentence. It hadn't worked. Judge Brennan announced the sentences. Connie Marie Crale, you're sentenced to 18 months in state prison, followed by 2 years supervised probation. You're also ordered to pay restitution and court costs. Connie collapsed fully now. Her lawyer holding her up. Raymond James Crowell, you're sentenced to 14 months in state prison, followed by 2 years supervised probation with restitution and court costs. Ray's face had gone red, his hands shaking with suppressed rage. Tyson Ray Crale, you're sentenced to 10 months in county jail followed by 3 years supervised probation with restitution and court costs. Tyson made a sound like he'd been punched. This court believes that family obligations run both ways. Brennan continued, parents have obligations to their children and grandchildren. When you violate those obligations through criminal conduct, you face consequences. Report to begin your sentences within 30 days. Court is adjourned. The gavel fell one final time. Jerry watched as his parents were led out by their lawyers. Connie could barely walk. Ray moved stiffly, his face a mask of fury. Tyson shouted something Jerry couldn't make out. None of them looked at him. Jerry stood and walked out of the courtroom into the March morning. It was over. 2 weeks later, Jerry and Lainey stood in front of a small house on the other side of Maple Ridge. It was nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms, a fence yard, a garage that needed work, but it was theirs. Jerry had saved the restitution money, added it to his own savings, and made a down payment. A fresh start. Lainey ran across the empty living room, her footsteps echoing on hardwood floors. She moved with perfect balance now. No hesitation, no wobbling. Just a normal 6-year-old exploring her new home. "Can I pick my room?" she called. "Go ahead." Jerry walked through the space, imagining furniture, pictures on the walls. Life filling these empty rooms. Outside the window, he could see a park 2 blocks away. Swings and slides, and open grass where Lainey could run. She deserved this. Deserved normal. Deserved a childhood without being caught in his family's dysfunction. His phone buzz. A text from Morrison. "Saw you closed on the house. Congratulations." Jerry smiled and typed back. "Thank for everything. You did the hard part. I just documented it." He pocketed his phone and looked around his new home. The last 3 months had been brutal. The investigation, the trial, the endless scrutiny from neighbors and strangers. Some people thought he was brave. Others thought he was cruel. Most didn't understand why anyone would send their own parents to prison. Jerry didn't care what they thought. He protected his daughter. Made sure she got the surgery she needed. Made sure the people who hurt her face consequences. That was enough. "Daddy." Lainey called from upstairs. "Come see." Jerry climbed the stairs and found her in the smaller bedroom standing at the window. It looked out over the backyard. Overgrown grass, a few trees, privacy fence around the perimeter. "I can see the whole yard from here," she said. "Can we get a swing set?" "Maybe. We'll see." She turned to him, her face bright with possibility. "This is a good house." "Yeah, it is. Are Grandma and Grandpa going to visit?" Jerry had been dreading this question for weeks. He knelt beside her. "Eye level." "No, sweetheart. They're not going to visit for a long time. Because of what they did. Because of what they did." Lainey thought about this, her 6-year-old brain processing adult consequences. "Did they say sorry?" "No, that's not nice." "You're right. It's not." She wrapped her arms around his neck, a tight hug that made Jerry's chest ache. "It's okay, Daddy. We have each other." Jerry closed his eyes and held his daughter. "Yeah, baby. We do." That night, after Lainey was asleep in her new room, Jerry sat on the back porch despite the chill. The yard was dark, just shadows of trees and fence posts. The neighborhood was quiet except for distant traffic. His phone sat beside him, silent now. His parents had 30 days to report to prison. Rye had already begun serving his sentence. Connie was scheduled to report next week. Tyson had filed an appeal that would probably go nowhere. Jerry felt no satisfaction, no vindication, no triumph, just peace. For the first time in his life, he'd set a boundary and enforced it. Refused to accept mistreatment as normal, protected someone who couldn't protect herself. His parents had made their choices. He made his, and he'd never apologize for it. Jerry looked up at the stars, barely visible through the light pollution, and thought about Lainey sleeping upstairs, about her running across playgrounds now without fear. About the life they were building, different from what he'd imagined as a kid, different from the family he'd wanted. But theirs, a father and daughter moving forward without the people who'd try to break them. He stood and walked back inside, locking the door behind him. Tomorrow he'd unpack boxes, hang pictures, make this house a home. Tonight he'd sleep in a place where no one could lie to him, steal from him, or pretend that family meant accepting abuse. Jerry checked on Lainey one more time. She was curled up with her dinosaur, breathing softly, safe. He walked to his own room and closed the door. For the first time in 6 months, Jerry Crowell slept without anger, without tension, without fear. Just a father who protected his daughter at any cost.